Imagine waking up to discover that the world's most famous house is about to collapse, not because of war, but because it was literally rotting from the inside. They didn't repair it, they emptied it. Every historic room was ripped out, leaving only the outer stone walls standing. Every nation has a symbol of power, but few buildings have survived destruction, war, reconstruction.
Today, millions recognize this iconic building. But almost nobody knows how close it came to disappearing forever.
Long before presidents lived here, this land was nothing more than forests, muddy roads, and open countryside. After winning independence, the young United States needed a permanent capital worthy of its growing ambitions. President George Washington personally selected this location for the nation's future capital. The capital city would become Washington, and at its heart would stand a presidential residence unlike anything America had ever seen. In 1792, a nationwide architectural competition invited designers to imagine the future home of America's president.
Inspired by elegant European palaces, Hoban created a building that symbolized strength, democracy, and dignity. Construction officially began on October 13, 1792. Marking the birth of one of the world's most famous buildings. Thousands of blocks of Aquia sandstone were transported from Virginia to build the massive structure. Hundreds of craftsmen, stonemasons, carpenters, and laborers worked side by side for years to bring the vision to life.
The building slowly rose floor by floor, becoming the largest residence ever constructed for an American president.
Even before it was finished, people already viewed the White House as the symbol of America's future.
But the mansion was still unfinished, and its greatest challenges had not yet begun.
On November 1, 1800, President John Adams became the very first person to live inside the White House, but the Grand Mansion was still far from complete.
Many rooms were still empty. Fresh plaster covered the walls, construction tools lay in the hallways, and cold winds swept through unfinished corridors. Abigail Adams even used one of the unfinished East rooms to dry the family's laundry, because there was simply so much empty space. Just months later, Thomas Jefferson became America's third president and began transforming the unfinished mansion into a true presidential residence.
Jefferson added elegant gardens, improved the interior, and built covered walkways connecting new service buildings to the main house.
As the young nation grew stronger, the White House became the center of American leadership. But beyond America's borders, tensions with Great Britain were rapidly escalating. In 1812, war erupted once again between the United States and Britain. 2 years later, British troops marched toward the young nation's capital. Government officials rushed to evacuate priceless documents, paintings, and national treasures before the enemy arrived.
One of the most famous rescues saved Gilbert Stuart's portrait of George Washington only moments before disaster struck.
On August 24, 1814, British soldiers entered Washington, D.C. But that night, they set fire to the White House, turning America's presidential home into a blazing inferno. The magnificent interiors collapsed beneath the intense heat, destroying nearly everything inside. By sunrise, only scorched stone walls remained. The White House had entered the darkest chapter of its history. Although the White House had been reduced to ruins, America refused to let its most powerful symbol disappear. The government made a bold decision. The White House would be rebuilt on the very same foundation. The architect James Hoban returned once again, determined to restore the masterpiece he had originally designed. Using the surviving exterior walls, craftsmen rebuilt nearly every room inside the mansion. Over the following decades, every president left behind small changes that slowly transformed the historic mansion. By the late 1800s, the White House had become far too small for the growing responsibilities of the American presidency. President Theodore Roosevelt decided it was time for another historic transformation. In 1902, construction began on an entirely new executive office building beside the White House. For the first time, presidential staff moved out of the residence, creating dedicated offices for the expanding government.
Years later, President William Howard Taft introduced one of the world's most recognizable rooms. The Oval Office quickly became the command center of the American presidency.
As technology advanced, electricity, telephones, heating systems, and modern communications transformed the White House from a
Behind its elegant walls, hidden systems quietly supported one of the busiest government buildings on Earth. But beneath the beautiful rooms, a dangerous problem was slowly growing, one that threatened the entire structure.
By the late 1940s, the White House had become dangerously unstable. Floors creaked, walls cracked, and engineers feared the entire building could collapse.
The investigation revealed decades of aging timber, overloaded floors, and weakened foundations that could no longer support the historic mansion.
The solution shocked the nation. The White House would be completely emptied from the inside.
Only the original exterior stone walls remained standing. Everything else inside was demolished.
Inside the empty shell, workers built an entirely new steel framework designed to support the White House for generations to come.
Modern plumbing, electrical systems, elevators, air conditioning, and advanced communications were quietly installed behind the historic walls.
Every historic room was then carefully rebuilt to match its original appearance, preserving the White House's timeless character.
Since then, every president has added small improvements while carefully protecting one of America's greatest historic landmarks. Today, the White House contains hidden security systems, advanced communications, and reinforced infrastructure that most visitors never see. Behind its famous white walls lies more than 2 centuries of architecture, engineering, resilience, and continuous transformation. From a construction site in 1792 to one of the most recognized buildings on Earth, the White House has survived every challenge history placed before it. Burned by war, rebuilt by determination, strengthened by engineering, and preserved for generations.
This is Megastructure Lab. Join us as we uncover the world's greatest engineering marvels, iconic landmarks, and impossible construction stories. Subscribe for more.
They didn't repair it, they emptied it. Every historic room was ripped out, leaving only the outer stone walls standing. Imagine waking up to discover that the world's most famous house is about to collapse, not because of war, but because it was literally rotting from the inside.